The most visible European problem of the current era is, and I was already asked several times here, is the fate of the European monetary union, something which should perhaps be understood in Argentina quite well because of your unsuccessful experiment with a similar monetary arrangement with the currency board system, which I dared to criticize in my talks with my friend Domingo Cavallo already during my previous visit to your country in 1994. The Eurozone project has not succeeded in delivering the positive effects that had been rightly or wrongly expected from it. It should help to accelerate economic growth, which didn't happen. It should help to reduce inflation, which didn't happen. And in particular, it should protect the member states against all kinds of external economic disruptions, the so-called exogenous shocks. It didn't happen either. This is not realized. After the establishment of the Eurozone, the economic growth of the member states, of its member states, had slowed down compared to the previous decades, thus increasing the gap between the rate of growth in the Eurozone countries and in other major economies, including Latin America. We discussed the same issue in the Congress just an hour ago, and I told them that if we take the rate of growth of Argentina in the year 2010, which is, I suppose, 8.5%, well, it's the rate of growth of Italy in the whole decade, from 2000 to 2010. In Germany, with the exception of last year, the rate of growth of the last 10 years is probably lower than the annual rate of growth in Argentina last year. So it was not a success. The internal disequilibria, such as trade imbalances or state budget imbalances, became bigger, not smaller. And I know that you know something about trade imbalances because of your fixing the peso to the US dollar. It's the same story. People like me understood very early that the idea of the European single currency is very problematic, that it will create huge economic problems and will lead to undemocratic centralization of Europe. To my great regret, it did happen. The Eurozone, which comprises today 70 European countries, I recently discovered plus Vatican. The Eurozone is not an optimum currency area as defined by the economic theory. During its first 10 years of existence, it has not led to any measurable homogenization of its member states' economies. In such a situation, it is inevitable that the costs of establishing and maintaining it exceed its benefits. So the cost-benefit ratio is not positive. My choice of the words establishing and maintaining is not accidental. Most economic commentators were satisfied by the ease and apparent inexpensiveness of the first step, the establishment of the common currency area. This helped to form the impression that everything was fine with this project. You have the same experience. Your system in 1991 looked quite well as well. It took 10 years that something happened. Practically the same time period elapsed between the introduction of the euro and the euro crisis last year. Over the last decade, the negative effects of the straitjacket of the single currency have become more and more visible. When good weather in the economic sense of the word prevailed, no visible problems arose. Once the crisis, which means bad weather, arrived in 2008-2009, the lack of homogeneity manifested itself very clearly. However, if you look into the future, in my understanding, the euro will not collapse. The euro will not collapse because a huge amount of political capital had been invested in its existence in Europe. And no one wants to lose this invested political capital. So the euro will continue to exist, but at a very high price, which will be seen in large-scale fiscal transfers inside Europe and in low rates of economic growth in the future. So that's my few words about the effect and consequences of the European integration process as it developed during the last years and decades. The second reason, and I will be shorter, the second reason for the European economic problems is the quality, productiveness, and efficiency of its economic and social system. That's the second leg of the problem. As seemingly friendly and non-demanding, excessively paternalistic, and as a consequence, not sufficiently productive economic and social system called in Europe, and now someone asked me something in German before my speech, so it must be in German, die soziale Marktwirtschaft. Social market economy is not the good term. It should be German language. Dominates in Europe. This system with its generous social benefits, weakened motivation, shortened working hours and life employment, prolonged years of studying, diminished the supply of labor, both at macro level and structurally, created bottlenecks and shortages. Europeans prefer leisure to performance. Europeans prefer security to risk-taking. Europeans prefer paternalism to free markets. Europeans prefer collectivism or group entitlements to individualism. They have always been more risk-averse than, for example, than Americans, but the difference continues to grow. Also, freedom seems to have a very low priority there. It seems that Europeans are not interested in capitalism and free markets, and that they do not understand that their today's behavior undermines the very institutions that made their past success possible. They are eager to very intensively defend their non-economic freedoms, or better to say the easiness, loosiness, laxity and permissiveness of modern, or perhaps postmodern European society, but when it comes to their economic freedoms, they are quite indifferent. The inefficiency and unsustainability of this system was later reinforced by the gradual acceptance of green ideology, of environmentalism. This process started in the 1970s, but reached its peak and its economic devastating effects now in the era of global warming or climate change alarmism. I will not go into detail, but I want at least to mention my book Planeta Azul no Verde, which has been published already in 17 foreign languages and is available also in Spanish. I am confident that you in Argentina or in Latin America will not repeat our mistakes. I hope we will aim at creating maximum openness inside your continent, but will keep respecting national sovereignty of individual countries and will, in my terminology, promote economic liberalization, not political unification. I wish you every success in this behavior. Thank you.